Awesome.
I don't know about you, but I did.
Okay. Good to go. A few more friends trickling in. Good to see you all. Wow, what a lovely crowd. Okay, so I'm Helen Heikkila. I am a community developer here at DE, and it's my pleasure to be hosting a bit of an interview with 3 talented digital extremes writers here. We're also going to have 15 minutes for audience questions at the end, so if anything comes to mind, keep it in there, and then there's a mic there, and there's a mic there, and I'll direct you to those microphones in the last 15 minutes. Let's start with some introductions, shall we? Immediately to my right, we have Ryan Moore. You can give a little wave, yes. So Ryan has been a guiding force from the very beginning of Warframe's narrative team. In fact, even before Warframe, he developed such iconic digital extremes games as Dark Sector, The Darkness 2, and Bioshock 2, which I love. You've enjoyed his creative work in Warframe in developing the characters and dialogue of Ordis, Tilregor, Teshin, and the Lotus herself, just to name a few. And now, Cam in the red. This is Cam Rogers. So, Cam has been a vital part of the Warframe narrative team for 6 years now. Outside of Warframe, he's written for Remedy Entertainment and for franchises such as The Walking Dead and Blade Runner. Within Warframe, he's known for creating the nuanced social environments that make open zones so exciting. Without him, for example, we wouldn't have the Ostrons or Solaris United. And finally, Adrian Bott. Adrian has been a writer for Warframe for 3 years, but his experience in the industry goes back to 1985 when he wrote for Commodore User magazine. He also wrote the 6-part series Axel and Beast and has written a stack of books for the tabletop game industry. On a lighter creative note, if you were in the Twitterverse in 2015, you might recall his viral tweet about face-eating leopards. We all know and love him for giving life to the Holdfasts and for his delicious, villainous dialogue spoken by characters like Ballas and Dominus Thrax. So now that we're all really well acquainted, are we ready for questions? All right.
Is this the one?
You bet it is. Okay, first up, do you have a Warframe character you feel closest to? Let's start with Adrian.
Well, I was a Tennocon before I was a writer at DE, and so because of that I have a deep and abiding affection for the Lotus, as I think we all do. But beyond that, obvious and totally understandable devotion, and I know I'm not alone in this, Father Intrati.
Yes!
Hi, Finn! I mean, I think, speaking as a dad who has frequently at times felt singularly useless in being there for people and passing on wisdom, there's actually a quote, I think it's actually from Silence of the Lambs of all things, that old men are desperate for wisdom. And I think Father typifies that in many ways. He is in a situation where everything he thought he knew about himself, about his skill set, the usefulness he thought he could bring to helping his family survive has had to be thrown out the window. And he rediscovers purpose, meaning, through his interactions with the player Tenno, and I think that's truly precious. And I love the guy. I wish nothing but the best for him, and writing and directing the Orphix Venom dialogues in particular was some of the best times I've ever had in my life, let alone my So yeah, Father all the way.
Awesome. Well, let's follow it up with Ryan.
Oh wow, there are so many. I mean, we've got, I haven't counted the number of characters we have in Warframe, but I think if they were like to be here right now, they'd fill a good portion of this room. There's 50 or 60. But you know, we have all the characters we did for Taviri, they're all wonderful, but if I go back to one of the first characters I wrote for Till Gore. I think he's a fan favorite, and he's a favorite of mine. Just the way he came together, his particular meter and dialogue. Steve and I really workshopped how it was going to sound, went back and forth, and then we gave the script out for auditions, and I don't know if he's in the room, he might be signing autographs, but Lucas Schuneman, he must be upstairs. Yeah, he came back with an audition that just blew us away. He took the character in a whole new direction. I'm like, oh, that's him now. There we go. Which is often what happens with when a great voice actor gets writing. They turn it into a new thing, and such is the case with Till Gore. And I was really glad we could bring him back for Citrine's Last Wish. And I just get back into his meter and his particular way of phrasing things that I just love writing for. Yeah.
Well, that brings us to you, Cam.
I mean, I've got a massive soft spot for a lot of characters. I mean, Cephalon Sai I love to death. The recipient of probably the tightest line I ever wrote, which was Ramsled launch Optimists inbound. I loved writing the Hawk and Pedlek double act. I had an absolute field day with that. That was amazing. But honestly, I think I've got equally distributed love for every single character in Fortuna. That place is really, really close to my heart, as is every single character in it. The business and Little Duck, like that particular dynamic, I would love to go further with. I would love to resolve. I would love to explore more. There's a really sort of lovely background thing simmering there that I'm really, really fond of. But I think the character that's got to be singled out, I think, would have to be Tico. I don't think Guy Cunningham is in here. I think he's upstairs signing. But Tico was an amazing opportunity that turned up at the last minute. We had a system that was going to go in for like a stock market kind of a thing, hence the name Tico. At the last minute, it turned into the system that you're all aware of, and we needed a character for it. And I said, hey, listen, how would you feel about us doing a trans character? And they said, yeah, go for it. So I had this amazing opportunity here to very, very quickly create a character that sometimes something just falls right out of you, fully formed, and you barely have to touch it, right? And with Ticker, it was just an opportunity to mine, collect, pass on every piece of wisdom and kindness that I personally ever received from the people that I admire most in my life. It was a chance to create a character that somebody on their worst day could just go to Fortuna, turn up to Ticker, and just click, 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 and feel like that character was looking through the screen at you and telling you something that you really needed to hear in that moment. She won't always have the answers, but what she tells you will be true. And I owe a really great debt to some of the best people in my life for that character, and I'm enormously gratified that she's found a place with so many people out there as well.
That's beautiful. Thanks, Cam. On to our next question. Do you have any advice for those who want to write for video games? For example, are there any false conceptions about video game writing? Do you have any strategies for writing character voices? And do writers need to know coding? Let's start with Ryan, I think.
Thanks, Helen. So I don't have a writing background. I come to this from art school, and then I started in the industry as a level designer, doing level design and a lot of cinematic hookups and narrative hookups and things like that. To answer your last question there, do you need to program? No. Does it help? Maybe. I think one of the things, if you want to get into writing for games or doing narrative for games, is being able to do part of the actual construction of the game. You don't need to, and you can focus on just writing, but if you can get on an indie team or work on a mod and be able to do the writing, but also maybe get that writing into the game and figure out some of the technical aspects, that'll help you all the way along, because then when it comes time, if you're on a big game, then you'll kind of understand how it's constructed. So on a daily basis, I'm not really in the engine anymore, but I know how it works. So when sometimes someone suggests something, I'm like, that's going to be hard, and then we modify the idea slightly, and that's going to be easy. And it's not always apparent what's hard and what's easy in a video game until you've tried to set it up. Yeah, yeah. I'm going to pass it on because I think these guys have more nuanced answers on the actual writing part.
Want to take it away, Ken?
Sure. So I mean, my answer is going to be more about writing in general, which is if you want to write for video games, or if you want to write in general, I think the first thing you need to ask yourself is, do you want to write, or do you want to have written? And if you want to write, then fantastic. You know, you're in it for the journey, you're in it for the craft, you're in it for the self-improvement. You know, you're in it to create something and get it out there. And you know, there's one of the things that you'll find is pretty much every skill you pick up in life is applicable. You know, I would say go to improv classes, learn how to think on your feet. I was told that if you want to be a good director, you've got to be a good actor, so I took that to heart, got a theatre degree, and I find that massively informed my writing as well. Because what I'm doing is, as I'm writing the dialogue, I'm performing it in my head, which allows for distinctive voices, and you can write a lot faster that way. I would suggest read widely, good stuff and bad stuff. You learn from both. And maybe the last thing that I would suggest would be, and I feel that I owe my career to this, is if you're interested in life, I would suggest very, very strongly that you walk through life with your antenna extended, and anytime you come across anything that's interesting, whether it's a word or a fact or a piece of verisimilitude or a funny line or a cool name, literally anything that is cool to you, write it down. I've been doing that for 30 years. I've got like a 300-400 page document that is just like bullet pointed verisimilitude. And I feel that I do owe my career to this, because what it means is, so first thing you have to understand is the first draft always sucks. It's meant to suck. It's meant to be ugly. You don't have to show it to anybody, and it doesn't matter. Most of your work will come from the edit, so I encourage you to not get constipated about, like, you know, it's not right, it's not right, it's not. Just honestly, seriously, just get it out there. It's called a vomit draft for a reason. And then once you've got that, most of the work comes in the editing. And this points file that I've got, it's massively useful, because what you're essentially doing is you're collaborating with myriad versions of your past self. It's not, it means that you don't have to be a genius in the moment. So what I do is, once I've got that ugly first draft and I've got the whole thing sort of in my head fresh, I go through that points file top to bottom, and I just tag anything that feels like it would possibly have a home in it, and then I isolate that, and then I go back through the draft, and then I go through that condensed list, and I find a place where each of these little things will lift it, or be surprising, or be cool. You know, it's a chance to finally use that cool thing that I found 7 years ago. And as a result, because I'm surprised by it, the reader is surprised by it, and there's this leap of inference that has to be made, and so the whole thing pops the way that real life pops. You know, it gets that third unexpected, dazzling dimension to it. And it also means that you can write good stuff way, way, way faster. Because all of these spectral versions of your past self are standing behind you going, hey, how about this? That's a great idea, do that. And it's honestly, seriously, cannot recommend that enough. If you take one thing away, do that.
Great, that's wonderful advice. Well, Adrian, are you ready to follow?
Follow that.
Yeah.
Well, personally, I learned a lot by watching Cam in action. But before that, what can I say about writing for video games specifically? Pick up books on screenwriting to learn the vocabulary of a writer's room, terms like what a story beat is, what we mean by sayings like a hat on a hat, or what on-the-nose dialogue is. All of these terms are banded around, and it really would help to learn what people mean by them. Follow writers and narrative designers on the site formerly known as Twitter. I won't get into that. Those that are still around and haven't migrated onto bluer pastures. But people like Rhianna Pratchett, Anna Miguel, Mary Kenny, they are giving out a lot of extremely useful advice for free. So track them down. Anna Miguel in particular has a book on how to get into writing in the games industry. So, you know, the resources are there. Other than that, echo what Cam said about improv class. But if you want to do something less sort of formal, with maybe slightly less societal pressure, run tabletop role-playing games. Learn the art. If I could go go back in time and tell the teacher who gave me a pardon me, bollocking, for playing games during my lunch hour instead of studying Latin, like I was supposed to, that I was going to get applause for saying that. My people. Thank you. I've never felt so much among friends. I had a point.
You were talking about how tabletop gaming helps you as a writer.
Yes. I was totally doing that. My point, and I do have one, was that it will encourage you to A, develop different voices spontaneously. It will give you the ability to improvise story situations with a great deal of sort of thinking on your feet. And crucially, it will get you into the habit of putting yourself into the place of a character and seeing their wants, their needs, their motivations as sovereign. Villains do not think of themselves as wicked villains. No, everybody has got a perspective on things which is unique and personal to them. And as a writer, you aren't creating cardboard cutouts, you are articulating people. So running role-playing games, it may seem like peculiar advice, but I really, really do recommend it. And I don't think writers for games need to learn coding necessarily, although anything which gives you a perspective on what other departments do and how they do it, in particular limitations of what can be achieved, will be very useful to you. But if there are games with player-generated content, shout out to the architect system at the late lamented MMO City of Heroes, in which I spent many happy hours back in the day. Anything which will let you write lines and put them into a character's mouth as the game is played will give you an idea of what actually works in context as opposed to what sounds good in your head or what looks good on the page. And also finally get into the habit of reading your written dialogue out loud, because I personally find that there are lines that sound great in my head, and when I read them out loud it sounds like weird, twisted, mangled, neo-Shakespearean stuff. And we frequently don't catch this, well I don't, until the actual recording session when I will realise that there is some ludicrous artefact of Brit speak that is in the mouth of a character. I had Teshin say the word dawdle. We'll not find that in the game files anymore. We caught it and we removed it, but stuff creeps in, you know, it happens. Anyway, I've talked far too much already. So,
No,
yeah, that's
all
it.
perfect, thank you. So, third question. I've noticed that the narrative team works brilliantly together. What's the secret to building and maintaining a strong collaborative relationship in a job that demands so much creativity? I'm going back to Ryan for this.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's really just about constant communication. You know, we are a distributed studio at the moment, at least our team is. So Adrian is in the south of England, Cam is currently residing in Australia, and I'm here in London. So we are always talking. These guys are amazing enough to keep it synchronous, so they stay up later at night so that we can all work together on a constant basis, constantly bouncing ideas off of each other, and also the rest of the team at Digital Extremes. And I should say that, you know, if we're talking about the narrative panel, we could easily have another couple people up here, and they'd be our creative direction team. So formerly Steve, who is really involved, or had been really involved with the writing of Warframe all along. You know, especially the cinematic quests and developing, you know, co-developing all the characters and looking at all the writing. And now that Rebecca is our creative director, she's doing the same. So, you know, the things you're going to see maybe later today, she had a really direct hand in that. So we're working with her all the time, and I think it's just constantly talking. Yeah, and I should say one other thing. We do have everybody from the narrative team up here because Helen, in the past year, has joined the narrative team. She's splitting her duties between community and... Helen's particular specialty is flavor text and naming. So pretty much for the last year, anything that any items, any weapons, warframes and stuff. You know, Helen's being spearheading, yep, all that stuff. And she's doing a wonderful job at it. It's a very difficult job to understand what a Warframe name is and what it isn't, and Helen just knows the game so well and what it's about, and she jumped right into the role and ran with it from day one. Also, yeah, Coolerbo, that update, Coolerbo, oh my goodness. The Coolerbo update, that was also Helen's brainchild, so. Yeah.
Thanks so much, thank you. We'll follow it up with Adrian.
Not much more to add to what Ryan said, really. I mean, we have, I think it's very important, I think, in the narrative team that egos get left at the door. We all respect one another's experience profoundly, and there is quite a lot of mileage between us as a team. And we're not precious about our work. I mean, we all are willing to throw stuff open, to invite comment and criticism, and without feeling that we have to massively defend anything. There is also a practice of, it's not that the writer that initially came up with a character has exclusive control of that character, but we do defer to them to have the final say and to also, when possible, do the bulk of the writing. So, for example, I'm kind of grandmother's writer because I hear her voice, sometimes literally, but I'll talk about it. That's a subsequent story if we have time. I mean, I wouldn't presume to try to write for Till Rigor because he's Ryan's, or for Cephalon on the side, or for Ticker because they came from Cam's brain. So yeah, there is that respect of the boundaries of creative sourcing, but also massive respect for one another's sort of work in the industry. And yeah, that's what I'd say about that.
At the same time, I'd say we're also not precious, so the drafts do get bounced around, you know.
It's rewriting.
Yeah,
iterative.
And it might be that one of us writes a script and pencils in everything for a character, and then it's like, yeah, and Cam's, this is a, you know, this character, so Cam's going to need to go back over this, or this is a
needs
grandmother.
a Cam pass.
Yeah, this needs an Adrian pass because it's its daughter or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I can only second everything that's been said here before, but having the ability to see the collective creation process as a puzzle rather than championing your singular vision, I think is a huge, make you enormously valuable in the room. And like Ryan was saying, you can have a minimal but healthy amount of ego, like enough to champion the stuff that you believe in, but when you are presented with more detailed info from somebody else's field of expertise, you're okay with adjusting in light of this new information. So the story you imagine isn't always the story you write. It certainly isn't always the story that gets edited, and it's quite often not the story that gets shipped. There's a lot of dancing that happens. And to give you like a particularly extreme example, when I was working on Quantum Break, Miki Atalati, Tyler Smith, Sam Lake and I, we spent 18 months in the writer's room getting a story that the player couldn't break, even though we let them go back in time and have a ton of agency. And we finally got that nailed down, and then we realized that certain things weren't going to let us do that, and we had to tear a bunch of stuff out, and because it was so tightly made, everything fell to bits. And I remember when Sam came in and broke the news to me, I don't want to speak for him, but from the expression on his face, I think he thought I was going to lose my collective shit. But the thing is, like, if you see this as a puzzle, like what happened then was, he told me that, and I immediately just basically saw the Matrix. And then it was like, okay, we've lost all this stuff, but this is good, this is good. The spirit of the thing is this, that's what we want to preserve. So we need a different shaped vessel that works different. So okay, we take this out, take this from Act 2, put it into Act 1, and that means the thing in Act 3 is going to land differently but harder. And then we can yada, 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 yada. And within about 2.5 minutes, I had something put together that let us save the spirit of the thing in a different shaped vessel. And that's a lot of what working in a writer's room is about. It's about knowing how it ends is in my opinion, critical, because that's where you say the thing that you want to say with the piece, and that's the thing you're trying to save. And as long as you keep your eye on that target, the things that change on the way fine. Improv classes, absolutely. Yeah, I don't know if I have much more to add to that.
Beautiful. Well, it's about that time, folks. Let's open this up to audience questions. So we can form 2 neat lines if the microphones are obvious to everyone.
Mind if you hold
Oh,
this?
wow, many of them. I love it.
Just keep it stable and put the cameras on the side.
Gotcha.
This is going to be posted online.
Okay, why don't we start here on the left? Oh, we have the mic on? They're on it. One moment. Tech support is coming.
Before we get started, by the way, if people here have questions that we don't get to, you're more than welcome to approach us afterwards. We're very happy to talk.
Yeah, we are very friendly and approachable. We love to talk about law. Troubleshooters talk about law.
What would you say your favorite bit of war is that someone else wrote?
Oh, what was their favorite thing from lore that someone else wrote?
Right.
Okay, what's it? There you have it.
The Deimos expansion was my first time in a dedicated narrative design role, so I didn't do a lot of the writing on that. That was Adrian. That was largely Adrian, Andy Chambers, Matt Etten, and pretty much, I mean, how could I not admire, like, I've known Adrian for 30 years, by the way, and like, we needed somebody real fast and we didn't have time to mess around, so I basically just said, hire this guy, you're going to get everything that you need, and I honestly couldn't be more proud of him.
Oh, I love this guy. We go way back.
Cool. Well, thank you for your question. We want to go to this microphone now.
I kind of got a lead-up question, if that's okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, are you familiar with the Dragon Age Inquisition writing, the lore behind that?
The dragon?
Not deeply.
Not okay. Well, in that vein, there was this one line in the game where he mentions that the best villains were the ones that walk beside you. How would you agree with that? Like, would you agree with it, or would you?
What was the line again?
The best villains are the ones that walk beside you, the friends that you have made, like the ones who.
What, like the ones that give you a paracesis?
No.
True.
Sorry.
The man with more gaslight than Victorian London?
Yeah. Sorry, I'm not the most articulate.
Good question.
No, it's a damn good question. Wow. Best villains are the ones who walk beside.
Well, I think we both agree that villains never think they're the villain, right?
Absolutely not, no.
Oh, really?
They have everybody's best interests at heart. I mean, Mathilda, oddly enough, kind of typifies that, because she wants everybody to be happy, even if that means, having to savagely repress them in numerous different ways. Can I churn over that one for a while? Because
Actually, okay, I'll take that one.
Yeah.
I don't agree with universal rules about writing. I think it can cost you a lot of time as a writer, but I think that is a really good point. And the reason I think it's a good point is this. I'm a firm believer that character is plot. You get, let's say 2 characters and they rub against each other metaphorically, sparks fly, and cool stuff happens as a result of that. So if you're talking about a villain that walks beside you, a villain that is close to you, then you're immediately implying that these 2 characters, protagonist and antagonist, have a myriad of deep and rich connections. So yeah, that is a great thing for a villain, because he's, they're inside the house, you know what I mean? And, they know you intimately, and if you want character B to demolish character A, and they have an intimate, also, betrayal really stings when it's somebody who knows you the most, and everybody can relate to that. And there are so many flavors and shades and angles that you can hit that from. So, yeah, actually, that's great.
I think we're kind of overlooking something glaringly obvious. I can save them. All of them. Credit to Steve, by the way. You have to say, we do not sit around pulling the story out of our collective kind of inspiration. The creative director brings the vision, we help to bring it to life, but credit to Steve for all of that amazing stuff.
It was a really fun question, though.
Yeah, thank you.
Funny enough, Adrian, when you said that, is actually the villain. That was his purpose, is to save his people.
Yeah, thank you.
Very
Thank
good. We'll come back to this mic over here.
Oh boy, I'm too tall for these mics. So, as an example, Final Fantasy XIV, occasionally, before like a major update, they'll release like short stories that kind of expand upon the world, side characters, that kind of thing. Given how rich Warframe's lore, and especially its characters are, has there been any, thought or consideration to maybe doing something similar like that with Warframe?
Great question.
Well, there was actually a little bit of lore that came out in the past couple of days. It was with Nora Knight. I don't know if anybody saw that. It came together very quickly, so we didn't record it. But they're transcripts with several characters from the game, some of them who prefer to remain anonymous. But I think after today's demo, we'll see how that enlightens what you've read before. But yeah, we love doing that sort of stuff. Sometimes we don't have time for it. Sometimes our energy needs to go into the game proper, so that sticks around.
We do have the Livarians.
And there's Livarians, which again are in the game proper. And we've done little comics. We did the Wave Rider comic that Adrian wrote. Styanax, Styanax was awesome. That was so much fun to work on. So yeah, there is things like that. I'd love to do more, but it's just, how thin can you spread yourself? Yeah.
I can't speak to what will happen, but I can speak to what I personally would love to happen. And I may have taken sentiments expressed about how, I'm pretty sure some of the players would love it if we had short stories on the site. And advocated for that to the best of my ability, because it's really something that I would love to do. I just love writing this stuff. Honestly. Give me more Livarians, more space to tell the stories, and I'm delighted that the Nora material that we have now released 3 chunks of is being well received and generating excitement. So yeah, I hope so, Finn. I hope so.
Thank you. And we'll come back to this mic.
Hello, I have more so of a lore question. So Parvos Granum is one of my favorite characters in the game. He seems very he seems like a good guy, and then he has the Tennant sisters, and they're not really good. Can you speak to more of how he kind of aligns in the system? Because it's very clear that when he talks about Nefanyo, he realizes that they kind of really perverted what he wants, but then he also seems like an antagonist at the same time. So
Yeah, Parvos is at once very complicated and very straightforward. He's Old Testament, Nefanyo is New Testament.
Yes.
And he's a lot of fun to write because there is no equivocation, there is no doubt. He is a scalpel. And how much can I say here?
He's the dad that established the business and then now comes back to watch his spoiled children running into the ground.
The Logan Roy.
Yeah. I think it comes back to the other question about, the villains that walk beside us. I don't know if I would classify Parvos as a villain. We'll see where he goes. But he definitely, I wouldn't trust him either. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Is very much his own thing, as you rightly point out, and his interests are in, I would say, facilitating his own desire and grasping power as a means to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's an old school zealot.
Yeah.
He's an old school Old Testament zealot. He's got a very pure, uncomplicated take on what needs to go down for reasons that he hasn't been entirely forthcoming about.
True.
Yeah.
We're being a bit cagey about Carlos, aren't we?
We can only say so much. All right, thank you for the fabulous
Thank you.
question. And back to this mic, we have a pattern.
Question for Ryan, was it?
Yes.
Oh, hi. You're the writer for Ballast and Thrax?
Well, everyone kind of is.
Everyone is.
Everyone collectively.
But Adrian has and Cam done lots of those dialogue.
Yeah, I mean, I did the final act of the New War. That might be the only Ballast thing that I wrote. The final scene with Lotus and Ballast and the...
Yeah.
Ballast is really Steve's creation. He's done the vast
Yeah,
majority.
for sure. But, I mean, you do all of
I do the
crime
crime
trailers
trailers,
and
Yeah.
Okay, what I wanted to know is, what is the creative process for writing the Prime trailers? All the things that Ballast says probably to himself?
Oh my word, well he's...
Or is he actually talking to somebody?
It depends on the trailer in question. So before my time, it was almost like he was at a Warframe showroom and was, for your consideration, Valve. But at other times, it's like he's addressing an assembled company of peers, and at other times, it's like he is addressing Margulis, departed shade, directly. So the trailers don't have one single hearer in mind. But, what's the process? I mean, Max has got such a distinctive delivery that I find it very easy to sort of imagine his voice in my mind and what he's actually having to say about each individual Warframe. One of my favourites recently was Revenant Prime. And I have to say, Revenant Prime didn't just fall fully formed out of the void. This is not an eternalism thing. What fatherless aberration is this? Okay, Ballast is disavowing any part in its creation, but it's also a hint that you need to look for a female creative figure, foreknowledge of his own doom, mocking me and causality alike. So what is a female figure with a transcendent perspective on causality and, maybe a bit tied up with the history of Revenant, and if you could see past, present and future simultaneously, would have foreknowledge of Revenant's fate, and maybe the decorations of that particular Prime Warframe mention the Unum specifically. Anyway, she's an amazing entity. There's a lot that she can do. I'm sorry I'm rambling a little bit. I'm very chatty.
Adrian does a really great job of being able to sort of decode style and write in that style. And I think it's props to Steve as well that Ballast is such a well-defined character, so very much with his own language. And pretty much Ballast these days is pretty much just Adrian and Steve.
Yeah, you know what? It comes down to, we'll be like, we need a new Prime trailer, and we'll get a pitch for sort of what will be happening visually, and then Adrian will go away, and a day later, they'll be like, here it is, and it rarely needs much editing. Like you just know Ballast and understand the Warframes and what they're about. Yeah. Not only that, but you can talk about the essence of the Warframes through Ballast's eyes, and you're just able to put that out there so quickly. So it's great.
The real challenge is not doing the same thing twice, I have to say. Because
How did the idea for the Prime trailers come about in the first place?
that is well before my time.
Yeah. I think that probably comes from the necessity of, we have these primes coming out, and we need to, market them, and so we're going to do a trailer. And those original Prime trailers had a lot of heavy animation in them. Jeff was heavily involved, and we stopped doing them for a while because we were spending so many resources getting them going, and there was such a call for them to come back that we were like, okay. So the last batch we're going to be able to do quite a lot more frequently, and it's because we've kind of looked at them and said, okay, how can we do these economically enough that we can do them on a regular basis, but still keep them special and exciting for people. So yeah, I'm not sure if that answers your question on where they came from, but it was we need to do something, and Ballast was a character that was rising in the Warframe world at the time. So, and he is the creator of the Warframe, so it just sort of came down to that.
We're always looking for ways to get a little bit more story in here and here and here.
Yeah.
It's half the game, so yeah.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
I think we have time for one more question.
Hi there. So when I write my own short stories, I try to work in philosophy and get the reader to ask questions about themselves and how they can relate to the story. For example, the Tears in the Rain monologue from Blade Runner, one of my personal favorite. When you guys are writing stories and writing lore, do you guys do that? And if so, how do you go about that? And what are some of your personal favorite, more like deeper quotes?
Wow.
That's a shame.
I think this one goes to you.
So the funny thing is, when you write this much, you forget almost everything you wrote. Adrian once reminded me of a novel that I wrote that I completely forgot about.
It was really good.
But honestly, I'm a big. I mean, in terms of stuff that I wrote, Cephalon, size, dialogue, I love to death. It was just such a fun exercise in flat, deadpan delivery of economical, skewering lines with a twist. Hock and Pedlek, again, was just me being able to be a complete goofball and have a great time with it and use all of these lines that we wanted to use and throw. But yeah, again, I feel like I'm repeating myself, but again, Tico, like, I was so glad to be able to get that stuff out there. But yeah.
I was going to say too, just on your question on, you talked about philosophy, but I think you can also say theme, and that often comes from creative direction. You know, like if we look at the Solaris, that was Steve saying, like, you know, this is a debt-internment colony, and what does that look like? And then Cam ran with that, like, what does that mean to be, does debt-internment mean? And there was some, we had Keith Thompson had done the Solaris the concept art first, and we're looking at that, and we're kind of building through that, and just always sticking close to this idea of you know, debt slavery, and what does that look like, and what do people live under that, what do their lives look like, and how does that affect their personalities. And you know, with everything we do try to have some theme that we're going for, and try to weave that into everything so that it feels cohesive. Sometimes that changes, sometimes that evolves as we write and we come up with the voices, but that's always something that's there. And sometimes you'll, you know, for our first vomit drafts, we'll write something that, you know, feels a little flat because it's trying to, you know, we know what the gameplay is, but we don't know what the theme is. And we're trying to find it, and that stuff you immediately know. You're like, it's missing something. What can we get into this? And that's often what we go back and do that on the second or third draft.
And just one sort of general thing as well to your question, is you quite often don't know what you're trying to say with a piece until you've written at least the first draft, or maybe even a couple of edits, and then you start to notice the stuff that's rising from the weave. And when you identify that stuff, you can then amplify or accentuate that, you know, organize setups and payoffs to better, you know, and you know, it can affect the ending. So quite often, it's okay to not know what you're trying to say with a piece, just write it and it will tell you. And once you get to a certain level of complexity, rather than being raw clay that you are, you know, impressing some preconceived idea onto, it actually becomes an almost sentient thing that you're collaborating with. It'll tell you what it needs to be. It'll tell you what it isn't. And that's the idea generator. That's when you start having ideas you wouldn't have ordinarily had, because now this thing is pushing back against you, and it's sparking you in directions you wouldn't have otherwise thought of. So again, that just highlights the importance of don't overthink the first draft, just get it out there, and the themes and the things you want to say, dialogue, everything will become apparent, and eventually you'll be walking down the street and feel like the characters are walking alongside you. Creepy, but literally true.
Totally. And I think when you first said, you know, do you put philosophy and such in your writing, my immediate reaction is, we do that all the time. And I'm trying to think of a single example of it, which proves remarkably difficult. I think what we do is we have a lot of communication of value and philosophy and outlook, which is kind of implicit. So, for example, when Cavallero says something like, in his final rank-up dialogue, don't ever quote me on this, but it's been an honor, that tells you something about the guy's outlook. Grandmother saying, you know, thus do we thumb our noses at Master Entropy, stitch by ragged stitch. It's about, doing the work, turning up day by day, being there, and attending to the needful, and keeping the factors that would cause familial disintegration at bay, just by attentive and mindful duty. So yes, we do that, and a lot of the time it's kind of conveyed through subtlety and dialogue as best we can. We don't always manage it necessarily, but it's the old adage, show don't tell, I guess.
It also really helps knowing who's going to play the character, because then you can write to the actor. So a really good recent example is the character of Chippo. I know Brendan, I know his work, I know his voice, and we both come from Melbourne, so it was very, very easy to create the character of Chippo because we all know a Chippo. So Brendan could just throw that on like an old coat and just run into the woods with it, and it turned out great.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you. And thank you for Helen. So as we were saying earlier, if anyone would like to talk to them one-on-one, ask any questions that didn't get a chance to ask on the microphone, all of our wonderful writers are open to that, so you can find them on the show floor and chat. And with that, enjoy the rest of Tennocon.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
I have one big question.
Sure.
2019, you guys had a museum here.
Okay, yeah.
You had a heavily censored script of the New War, where it was before what it currently is, where it looked like it's going to be a cut scene of the sentients attacking, and that there was going to be a meeting with the allies and the enemies with the operator. When did they change that to the current iteration where they had you play as the factions?
Yeah.
And how did the process go to redesigning the script for that?
You know what? That is, I'm not embarrassed to say, but that's a Steve question, really. Because he was the mastermind behind the New War and most of the cinematic quests, really. So we're there for support on those, but they really come out of his head.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's like.
Do you remember the script I'm talking about? The original iteration?
Yes and no, and there was also, wasn't the New War, there was a script that got data mined out. I think it was earlier that was War Within that got data mined.
Oh yeah?
And we rewrote it all afterwards because of that, or Steve did at least.
So Steve that designed the original script for the intro segment?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, the New War went through a lot of drafts. It did.
Of course, it's been behind the scenes for many years.
Yeah. And I wasn't always seeing all the drafts because Steve kept bless his heart. But yeah, there is some heavily redacted versions of it that changed a lot.
Okay.
So yeah.
Thank you.
No